Gonads. Reproductive glands: male, testes; female, ovaries, primary sex organs. Gametes. Reproductive cells have only half the number of chromosomes as body cells. Accessory reproductive organs include ducts that transport, store the gametes, glands that secrete substances for the gametes' well-being, and the external genitalia. Reproductive system. Organs and tissues involved in the production and maturation of gametes and in their union and subsequent development as offspring. Sperm. Haploid male sex cells produced by meiosis. Ova. The female sex cell or gamete produced in the ovary. An ovum fuses with a sperm to produce an embryo, singular as ovum. Seminiferous tubules. Small convoluted tubules in the testes where spermatogenesis takes place. Epididymis. Long, thin coiled tube where sperm mature and are stored. Sperm spend 20 days here gaining their ability to swim. Ductus deferens. Vas deferens extends from epididymis in the scrotum to the ejaculatory duct with the pelvic cavity exterior to the body. It is contained within the spermatic cord, a connective tissue sheath called the spermatic cord. Spermatic cord. A structure resembling a cord that suspends the testis within the scrotum and contains the vas deferens and other vessels and nerves. Ampulla. Expanded end of vas deferens. Ejaculatory duct. Begins at the vas deferens, passes through the prostate glands, and empties into the urethra. A reflex action caused by these ducts causes ejaculation. Ejaculation. When the thick layers of smooth muscle in the urethra walls create peristaltic waves that rapidly squeeze the sperm forward. Urethra regions in the male. Prostatic urethra, membranous urethra, spongy urethra. Seminal vesicles. Located at base of bladder, produce 60% of seminal fluid, the fluid volume of semen, secretion rich in sugar, vitamin C, prostaglandins and other substances. Sperm and seminal fluid enter the urethra together during ejaculation. Prostate. Encircles the upper part of the urethra just below the urinary bladder. Prostate gland secretion is a milky fluid that plays a role in activating sperm. Hypertrophy. Increase in the size of the prostate happens to nearly every older man, and strangles the urethra, makes urination difficult and increases the risk of bladder infections. Prostatitis. Inflammation of the prostate is the single most common reason for a woman to consult a urologist. Prostatic cancer. The third most prevalent cancer in men. Cancer is a slow-growing, hidden condition, but can also be a swift and deadly killer. Bulbourethral glands. Tiny, pea-shaped glands inferior to the prostate, they produce a thick clear alkaline mucus that drains into the membranous urethra, acts to wash residual urine out of the urine when ejaculation of semen occurs. Semen, spermatozoa and seminal fluid. External genitalia. Reproductive organs located outside of the body cavity, scrotum and penis. Penis is designed to deliver sperm into the female reproductive tract, consists of a shaft which ends in a large tip, the glans penis. The skin covering the penis is loose, and it folds downward to form a cuff of skin, the prepuce or foreskin. Circumcision. When the foreskin is surgically removed shortly after birth. Erectile tissue. A spongy tissue that fills with blood during sexual excitement. This causes the penis to enlarge and become rigid. This event is called erection. Spermatogenesis. Sperm production begins during puberty and continues throughout life. Every day a man makes millions of sperm. Only one sperm fertilizes an egg, so it seems that nature has made sure that the human species will not be endangered for lack of sperm. Spermatogonia. Primitive stem cells found in the outer edge of each seminiferous tubule. These go through rapid mitotic division to build up the stem cell line. From birth until puberty, all such division simply produce more stem cells. During puberty, HOVR, follicle-stimulating hormone FSH, is secreted in increasing amounts by the anterior pituitary gland, and, from this time on, each division produces one stem cell called a type A and one called a type B, both daughter cells. Primary spermatocyte. After spermatogonia have split into type A and type B daughter cells, the type B cell gets pushed toward the tubule lumen, where it becomes this and is destined to undergo meiosis and form four Meiosis. A special type of nuclear division that occurs for the most part only in the gonads, ovaries and testes. It differs from mitosis in two major ways. 1. Consists of two successive divisions of the nucleus instead of one, and 2. It results in 4 daughter cells instead of 2, 4 gametes. Spermatids have only half as much genetic material as other body cells. Spermatogenesis. Last step of spermatogenesis, maturation of each spermatid into a single spermatozoon, sperm, with a head, midpiece and tail. Acrosome. A region at the head of a sperm cell that contains digestive enzymes which, when released during the acrosome reaction, can facilitate penetration of the corona radiata of the egg, and subsequently fertilization. Testosterone. The most important hormonal product of the testes, a steroid hormone required for development of the male reproductive system, spermatogenesis, and male secondary sex characteristics, the major androgen in mammals. Luteinizing hormone. Causes ovulation, stimulates the secretion of progesterone by the corpus luteum, causes the secretion of testosterone in the testes during puberty. Secondary sex characteristics. Her features induced in non-reproductive organs by sex hormones. Males include deepening of voice, increase hair growth, enlargement of skeletal muscles, and increases heaviness of skeleton. Sexual infantilism. If testosterone is not produces, the secondary sex characteristics never appear in the young man, and his reproductive organs remain childlike, result in a decrease in size and function of his reproductive organs, as well as a decrease in his sex drive. Sterility occurs when no testosterone is produced, because testosterone is necessary for the final stages of sperm production. Ovaries. Primary female reproductive organs, produce ova and endocrine products. Ovarian follicles. Sac-like structures that contain the immature oocytes within the ovaries. Oocyte. Immature egg in the process of developing. Follicle cells. Somatic cells that surround the oocyte and nurse cells during egg development. Vesicular follicle or Graafian follicle, stage of development where the follicle has a large antrum containing fluid. The ovum is pushed to one side of the follicle and is surrounded by the corona radiata. The immature ovum is released, and enters the uterine tubes with its corona radiata intact. Ovulation. The process of releasing a mature ovum into the fallopian tube each month. Corpus luteum. Yellow endocrine tissue that forms in a ruptured Gonorrhea follicle following the release of an ovum. Suspensory ligaments. The ovaries are secured to the lateral walls of the pelvis by these. Ovarian ligaments. Ligaments that maintain the position of the ovaries relative to the uterus and fallopian tubules. Broad ligament. The ligament extending from the lateral margins of the uterus to the pelvic wall keeps the uterus centrally placed and provides stability within the pelvic cavity. Fallopian tubes are uterine tubes which carry eggs from the ovaries to the uterus and which provides the place where fertilization occurs. Fimbria. Finger are fringe-like projections at the end of the fallopian tubes that partially surround the ovary. As the oocyte is released, these create fluid currents that act to carry the oocyte under the uterine tube. Gonorrhea. Contagious, inflammatory sexually transmitted disease caused by a bacterial organism that affects the mucous membranes of the genitourinary system. Pelvic inflammatory disease. Sexually transmitted diseases sometimes infect the peritoneal cavity, causing an extremely severe inflammation. Uterus. Located in the pelvis between the urinary bladder and rectum, is a hollow organ that functions to receive, retain and nourish a fertilized egg. Uterosacral ligaments. Uterine supporting ligaments that attach to the lower portion of the uterus, anchoring it to the sacrum. Is your brain fried yet? Mine sure is. Round ligaments. Ligaments that arise from the side of the uterus near the fallopian tube insertion to help the broad ligament keep the uterus in place. What is the major portion of the uterus referred to as? The body. Fundus. Superior rounded region above the entrance of the uterine tubes. Cervix. Narrow outlet of the fundus which protrudes into the vagina below. Endometrium. Innermost layer of the wall of the uterus and where the embryo burrows into. Implantation. When ab embryo implants itself into the endometrium. Cancer of the cervix. Common among women between the ages of 30 and 50. Risk factors include frequent cervical inflammation, sexually transmitted diseases, multiple pregnancies, and many sexual partners. Myometrium. Composed of interlacing bundles of smooth muscled bulky middle layer of the uterus, plays an active role in the delivery of a baby by contracting rhythmically to force the baby out of the mother. Vagina is a thin-walled tube 8 to 10 centimeters long. It lies between the bladder and rectum and extends from the cervix to the body exterior, often called the birth canal. Hymen. A fold of tissue that partly covers the entrance to the vagina of a virgin. External genitalia of the female. The vulva. Mons pubis. A fatty, rounded area overlying the pubic symphysis. After puberty, this area is covered with pubic hair. Labia majora. Two hair-covered skin folds running posteriorly from the mons pubis. Labia minora. Delicate hair-free fold enclosed by the labia majora. Vestibule. Contains external openings of the urethra. Greater vestibular glands. A pair of mucus-producing glands flanking the vagina, one on each side. Clitoris. A small, protruding structure that corresponds to the male penis, composed of sensitive erectile tissue that becomes swollen with blood during sexual excitement. Perineum. Diamond-shaped region between the anterior end of the labial folds, the anus posteriorly and the ischial laterally. Oogenesis. The production, growth, and maturation of an egg or ovum. Oogonia. The primitive stem cells that begin oogenesis. During fetal development, these undergo mitosis thousands of times until their number reaches 2 million or more. Ovarian cycle. The cyclic changes that occur monthly in the ovary constitute this. Secondary oocyte. An oocyte in which the first meiotic division is completed. The second meiotic division usually stops short of completion unless fertilization occurs. This is a larger cell. Polar body. A small cell containing little cytoplasm that is produced along with the oocyte and later discarded. Ovum. The female gamete, a single, unfertilized haploid cell, an egg. Menstrual cycle. The cycle of changes that occurs in the female reproductive system, during which an egg develops and the uterus prepares for the arrival of a fertilized egg. Progesterone. A hormone produced by the ovaries which acts with estrogen to bring about the menstrual cycle. Mammary glands. Modified sweat glands located in the breasts that prepare for milk production in anticipation of the birth of a fetus. Areola. Small circular area such as that around the human nipple or an inflamed area around a pimple or insect bite. Nipple. On each breast, contains ducts from mammary glands to surface. Alveolar glands. A mammary gland is composed of 15 to 20 irregularly shaped lobes, each of which includes alveolar glands, and a duct, lactiferous duct, that leads to the nipple and opens to the outside to secrete milk. Lactating. Producing milk. Lactiferous ducts. Milk ducts which carry milk from the mammary glands to the nipple. Lactiferous sinus. Dilated region deep to each areola where milk accumulates during nursing. Cancer of the breast. Second most common cause of death in American women. Self-examination and mammography is unquestionably the best way to increase a woman's chances of surviving breast cancer. Mammography. A radiographic examination of the breasts to detect the presence of tumors or precancerous cells. X-ray. Women between 40 and 49 should have one every 2 years and yearly after that. Pregnancy refers to the events that occur from the time of fertilization until the infant is born. Conceptus. A pregnant woman's developing offspring. Gestation period. Development occurs during this time, which extends by convention from the last menstrual period until birth, approximately 280 days. Embryo. From fertilization through week 8, the conceptus is called this. Fetus. From week 9 of pregnancy through birth, the baby is called this. Acrosomal reaction. Once the sperm make it to the oocyte, they undergo this, in which the acrosome membranes of the sperm break down, releasing enzymes that digest holes in the oocyte membrane. Fertilization. occurs at the moment the genetic material of a sperm combines with that of an ovum to form a fertilized egg. Zygote. A fertilized egg, the first cell of the new individual. Cleavage. As the zygote journeys down the uterine tube, propelled by peristalsis and cilia, it begins to undergo rapid mitotic cell divisions, forming first 2 cells, then 4, and so on. Blastocyst. Her chorionic vesicle. Once as the embryo reaches 100 cells and they form a hollow ball-like structure. Human chorionic gonadotropin. An LH-like hormone that is secreted by a blastocyst which prods the corpus luteum of the ovary to continue producing its hormones. If this were not the case, the functional layer of the endometrium would be sloughing off shortly in meses. Trophoblast. One important area of the blastocyst which form the large fluid-filled sphere. Inner cell mass. One important area of the blastocyst which is a small cluster of cells on one side of the large fluid-filled sphere. Ectoderm. Gives rise to the nervous system and the epidermis of the skin, one of the primary germ layers. Endoderm. Forms mucosa and associated glands. Mesoderm. Gives rise to virtually every other part of the body that the ectoderm, nervous system and skin, and endoderm, mucosa and associated glands, do not make up. Chorionic villi. After the zygote is securely implanted, the trophoblast part of the blastocyst develops elaborate projections. Placenta. The chorionic villi of the blastocyst combine with the tissues of the mother's uterus to form this. Once it has formed, the plate-like embryonic body, now surrounded by a fluid-filled sac, amnion, is attached to it by a blood vessel containing stalk of tissue, umbilical cord. Amnion. Fetal membrane that forms a fluid-filled sac around the embryo. Umbilical cord. A cord or funicle connecting the embryo or fetus with the placenta of the mother and transporting nourishment from the mother and wastes from the fetus. Parturition. Childbirth. Labor. The series of events that expel the infant from the uterus. False labor. Braxton Hicks contractions. They are irregular uterine contractions, can cause women to go to the hospital and be sent home. Dilation stage. Time from the appearance of true contractions until the cervix is fully dilated by the baby's head. Eventually the amnion ruptures, causing a woman's water breaking. Expulsion stage. The period from full dilation to delivery of the infant passes through the cervix and vagina outside of the body. Dystocia. During an extremely prolonged or difficult stage 2 expulsion stage, this condition may occur. Oxygen delivery to the infant is inadequate, leading to fetal brain damage and decreased viability of the infant. To prevent these outcomes, a cesarean section may be performed. Cesarean section. Her C-section, a form of delivery through which a surgical incision is made through the abdominal and uterine walls. Placental stage. The delivery of the placenta is usually accomplished within 15 minutes after birth of the infant. After birth, the placenta and its attached fetus membranes. Pseudo Hermaphrodites. Individuals with external genitalia that do not match their gonads. Hermaphrodites. Rare individuals who possess both ovarian and testicular tissues. Phimosis. Essentially is the narrowing of the foreskin of the penis and misplaces urethral openings. Cryptorchidism. Failure of the testes to make their normal descent a month before birth leads to this condition, resulting in a sterile male. Surgery is usually performed. Puberty is the period of life, generally between the ages of 10 and 15 years, when the reproductive organs grow to their adult size and become functional under the influence of rising levels of gonadal hormones, testosterone in men and estrogen in women. What are the most common inflammatory conditions in men? Urethritis, prostatitis, epididymitis, orchiditis. Inflammation of the testes is rather uncommon, but serious because it can cause sterility, most commonly following STI or mumps in an adult man. Menopause normally occurs between the ages of 46 and 54 years and is considered to have occurred when a whole year has passed without menstruation, ending of the childbirth ability.